Hey guys, it's QuickyBaby and welcome to a preview of the Object 430. This is going to be the third Tier 10 Russian medium tank in the game. And in a nutshell, this is a more heavily armored Russian Tier 10 medium tank that forgoes a little bit of the gun characteristics that you have on the other tanks to have 120mm of frontal armor that is very well angled. If that sounds like the tank for you, then stay tuned, and if not, hang around anyway and I'll tell you how you can take them out when you see these things popping up on the live server. So this tank has got 1900 hit points, it weighs just shy of 36 tons when it's fully equipped, and it has an engine power of 580. I'll leave the T62A and the Object 140 in the top left hand corner so we can make comparisons between the tanks. We can see that they all share the same engine horsepower of 580. The top speed limit on this Object 430 is as good as the Object 140 at 55 kilometers an hour, which is a lot better than the T62A, which is at 50 kilometers an hour. Now the traverse speed on this tank is the middle ground. It's at 52 degrees, which is better than the T62A, but worse than the Object 140. Now the hull armor is the best by a long shot at 120mm, with 80 at the side and 40 at the rear. Now its turret armor is as thick as the others, 48 at the front, 85 at the side and 63 at the rear. We'll take a look at a bit more depth in the What Tank model viewer in a second to take a look at the armor. Just to quickly go over the gun characteristics of this tank, and that's where this tank becomes a little bit of a letdown. Here's the gun when it's mounted on the Object 430, and here's the gun when it's mounted on the T62A. You can see that the rate of fire is 0.39 less. Although it has the same penetration and alpha damage, it's slightly less accurate than the T62A, and its aim time is quite a lot worse at 2.3 rather than 2.1. And that's basically the same as the comparison with the Object 140, although the Object 140 does have slightly worse accuracy and slightly worse aim time than the T62A, but at least the rate of fire is the same on the Object 140 as it is on the T62A. So I might have just said a lot of jargon, but what do you really need to know about the Object 430? Well, basically, it forgoes a bit of the gun characteristics that the T62A and the Object 140 have, and it pumps it up with some frontal hull armor. So let's take a look at how this tank does in the model viewer. So here we can see the Object 430 and its armor profile. We can see that the tank, like the Object 140, has rather poor armor at the top of the tank that can be taken advantage of, and its cupolas are still rather strong. It does have this rather nice band of very thick armor at the front of the tank, although it is rather flat there. It has a nice block of spaced armor over the front of the gun. Now here's that lovely 120mm of frontal armor that's very well angled. And there's the 80mm of side armor. It does have this rather bad wing that comes out from the side of 55mm. It does have a rather poor 25mm band at the bottom of the tank. And basically the section that you'll be getting shot in is this band, this 80mm band that's down the side that is very similar to the T54 and the Object 430 version 2 as we talked about. So when we compare this turret armor to example T62A, we can see that T62A lacks that kind of front top turret armor weakness. And that's where the T62A is stronger. The T62A does have that stronger turret. However, it only has 102mm of the block on the front. As we can see, the angle is not as good as it is on the Object 430, as we can see here. That's 120 at a much better angle than the T62A, which is 102 at a more shallow angle. Everyone knows that the T62A's weak point really is the front plate and the fact that it gets set on fire very often. And that's what a lot of people don't like about the T62A, is the fact that although its turret armor is good, it doesn't have the gun depression to really use it, and its hull armor is just a gigantic weak point. The Object 140, with its fantastic frontal armor, a very good angle of 120, should be able to overcome that. It's also worth mentioning the Object 430's front, its turret is actually slightly thicker than the T62A, but only by 8mm. The T62A does have better side turret armor, as we can see here. 161s really is going around the whole of the tank, whereas the Object 430 has 130mm here and only 90mm here at the side. As we can see, the cupolas on the Object 430 do stick up less than the Object 140, and the 430 is actually lower profile than the Object 140, which is incredible. One thing, however, is that the Object 430 does get the same gun depression as the T62A, and it's only going to be 5 degrees compared to the Object 140 that gets 6 degrees. So if you kept up with all that mumbo jumbo, I congratulate you. Basically what you need to know is that the Object 430 has better frontal hull armor than its brothers, the Object 140 and the T62A. Its turret armor is not as good as the T62A, but it seems to be slightly better than the Object 140s. But this tank really does have those gun weaknesses that the other two tanks don't. So it's up to you. forego the slightly better gun for the frontal armor. Let's take a look to see how it performs in some gameplay. So here we go, we're playing on Prokhorovka on the 8.10 test server. And this is a fairly nice matchup, really. Most of the 8.10 test server were basically a huge amount of people using the tier 10 tank destroyers. But as you can see, there's a good amount of medium and heavy tanks on the enemy team. There's even an E100 on the test server. Absolutely amazing. So here we can see the Object 430 bombing it around. We can see it's not very slow, able to get up to its 40 km/h up that slope. So I'm playing quite aggressively here. We can see the tank is very low profile indeed. It's very funny to be aiming out of. So we're going for that Foch. Put a good shot into him there. And there we can see that a shot just grazed the top of our tank, importantly. Probably hitting our cupola. So that's an interesting penetration. However, another one just bounced off a more well-dangled armor of the tank there. So, this is a bit cheeky. I'm just basically trying to play cat and mouse with some very dangerous tanks here. Oh, tried to make a snipe there on the Waffenträger Alpha E100, but I didn't aim it very well. So artillery just smashed my face. We can see there just the accuracy on hitting that Foch. And I think because my tank is so low profile and there's so little to the top of the tank above the gun, we can actually shoot the Foch before he can shoot us. We're able to put a nice shot there into the T-57 Heavy and then pull back. And just check out the rate of fire on this gun. Okay, I angle my tracks one way. He bounces off us. I stop to shoot him again. He penetrates us that time. On the upper plate, we get a bounce off our mantlet there. Unfortunately, we bounce off the T-57 Heavy's turrets again. Such troll armor on the front of those T-57 Heavies. Oh god, two Foches. Please don't see me, please don't see me, please don't see me. Oh, I probably shouldn't have shot him because he will see me then. Managed to track him clutch there. And this is a very dangerous situation. I'm just playing like a bit of a donkey here, you know, doing a bit of testing. I have a kill on this T-57 Heavy who's trying to kill the other guy. Now I'm going to go after that Foch who's dead. Unfortunately, we get tracked by a Waffenträger Alpha E100. But it looks like it was his last shot, otherwise he would have probably murdered us. We fire one clutch through the E100's turret there. And again, another shot that hits us, and we don't take any damage. Now this is what I'm kind of trying to take a lot of shots here and just be cheeky, be aggressive. Take shots and give shots. That's what I want to do right now in the Object 430. Because really I want to test out the armor on this tank, and you be the judge of how well it's performing. I feel that it's performing very well indeed. So we can see that the aim time on this tank is sometimes a little longer than the others. But it's still doing a great job of being able to punch through these targets. And the rate of fire and the DPM is just simply excellent. May not be quite as good as the other Russian tier 10 medium tanks, but it's still more than enough to really be absolutely devastating to the enemy. So really just the frontal armor, look at the profile of this tank from the front. It's absolutely crazy. The frontal armor on this tank is completely troll. Sometimes it will go in on the front. Quite often it's just going to bounce. And that's what this tank is all about. Fire one in clutch there. Turn around. Think about going after the SDB-1, but now let's get the Z3. I load an 8G shell, but he was already survived. But we just hit the SDB-1 there, and I think we penetrated our 8G shell, but we couldn't be sure. We can check that out in the after-game stats. So here are the post-game stats for that game in our Object 430. We can see we're able to get a lot of credits and a good amount of experience picking up the Mastery Badge on the test server, 1,750 with the premium account. As we were playing aggressively, we spotted a lot of the enemy and we managed to put a good amount of shots in, doing the most damage on the team with 4,500 damage done and securing 3 kills. also picking up a Confederate medal. Interestingly, look at the potential damage that we received. We took 10 hits, only 4 of them penetrated, and you'll notice that we had about just under 800 hit points left at the end of the game, which is enough to really keep going and keep taking a few more hits. We did 4,800 tracking / spotting damage as well. As this is test server footage, it's far from conclusive about how this tank is going to perform on the regular servers. However, the Object 430, as we saw there, that 120mm of frontal armor makes a huge difference. The turret, although it does have its weak points as we were shown in the garage, is still very good, and the low profile of this tank means that they quite often hit your turret even when they're aiming for your hull, or they just miss your tank completely. Now that extra 20mm of armor on your frontal plate and the incredible angle on this tank is simply game-changing. It's amazing to think that this tank has got more mobility than the T-62A and much thicker armor, and the only aspect that it really loses is some of the characteristics on its gun. I think that the Object 430 is going to be a fantastic tank on the release. I can't wait to play this. For me, it's a toss-up between the Object 430 and the Object 140 as to which is going to be For me, it's a toss-up between the Object 430 and the Object 140 as to which is going to be my favorite tier 10 Russian medium tank. I think they're both different kind of vehicles, and I think the only one that really suffers in my opinion is the T-62A. I think there are two extremes of the scale. You've got the Object 140, which is faster but more lightly armored than the T-62A with regards to its turret, and it also has better gun depression. Then you've got the T-62A in the middle, and then you've got the Object 430, which is not slower than the T-62A. It's more heavily armored, but its gun is worse. I don't think that the new Object 430 makes the Object 140 useless, and this is just in my opinion how I felt that the Object 140 made the T-62A useless. I think the impact of the Object 140 was massive on the T-62A, and I think that the Object 430 has a massive impact on the T-62A as well, but not such a big impact on the Object 140. It kind of goes to the other end of the scale, and I think the only real loser is the T-62A stuck in the middle, not really being very good at anything. Anyway guys, this is just my opinion. I'm sure lots of you T-62A drivers who prefer it much over the Object 140, and you'll probably still like it over the Object 430. Will be down in the comments below telling me how wrong I am and that the T-62A is much better than either of the objects. Hopefully I've just provided you the stats so that you can have a brief indication of what you might like to grind for. If I was completely new to the medium tanks right now, I would probably go for the Object 430, but only because of the introduction of the SDB-1. I feel that the SDB-1 has taken the kind of lightly armored, high DPM, high mobility tank to such an extreme that you have to kind of take it to the other way. And you have to have a medium tank that has that speed. It has a lot more armor than the other medium tanks. Maybe its gun just isn't quite as good, and that's what you'll get in the Object 430. Anyway guys, I hope you've enjoyed this preview. If you have, please consider rating it down below. I'd really appreciate it. And tell me what you think about the fact that there are 3 Russian tier 10 medium tanks in the game. Do you think that's overkill? And which one do you think is the best, and why? As always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.